all my GAO studies. They're the most wonderful things to find out about programs is our GAO reports.
Exactly. Well, you know, as I was saying, the workforce development programs have really been around in some way, shape, or form since like the 1930s. They started.
Oh, really?
They really started.
And I thought it was Robert Reich did it all.
They started. They actually started as part of Roosevelt's War on Poverty, and there was a series of like what they used to call like manpower acts. They didn't really come to a formalized type of legislation until the 1950s, 1957 or so. They came up with the
You mean what we had the work? What were those work bonds? You know, we took artists and had them paint buildings. And
that was like CETA. That didn't happen until there may have been some of that back in the 30s, 40s, and early 50s. But from a legislative standpoint, they didn't come together in like an act until right after the or during the Korean War, when folks started, when people were leaving and unemployment went up a little bit and started spiking
when the Korean War was over.
Right. And so after that happened, then they, the feds created the Manpower Workforce and Development Act, MWDA.
I see.
And that lasted for about 10, 15 years until the 60s, about 63. And then they came up with the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, which was, they called it CETA.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's when they did the things like the, you're talking about the artists painting the buildings and things like that. And basically it was like subsidized employment, basically, just to get people
But didn't we
back
have that in the Depression, too? Subsidized employment? I mean, didn't we... God, what did they call those things when we sent people in the country to clean out woods and all
They were
this?
like the AmeriCorps. That might have been the. I think AmeriCorps is later though, but those sorts of things, activities where they would send people out to clean up the woods, plant trees.
To do, and they got a little income.
And they got paid like minimum wage or whatever to do that. And so CETA was the next one, and that lasted until 1982, pretty much for. I think from 72 to 82 for about 10 years, and then 82 they came up with the Job Training Partnership Act. It was passed into law in 1983, and that lasted until 1999 with the Workforce Investment Act.
Job Training Partnership. Yeah. Now, so that's not around at all anymore.
No.
Right.
No.
And that was in '99. The '99 started the
Workforce Investment Act.
Yeah. And but career one-stops. I remember Reich, because I was doing a book at the time. My book, Free Money Change Your Life, was really based on that. I saw, they had all these dozens and dozens of training programs all over, and no one source to find out about them. And but I guess the one-stop. Part of that?
The one-stop concept actually started in 1993.
I see. That's I thought before '99.
Yeah, with that session of Congress, they started talking for the first time about trying to put all these different programs in one space, one place at one time. And the concept of the one-stop was actually kind of born, actually out of that whole conversation, and actually part of the end of JTPA. And they started to spring up across the country.
Right.
And the original idea was that you're going to have these agencies all co-located in one physical space. And sometimes that actually happened, but if you think about it, if you look at the enormity of some of the programs and projects and staffs and so forth, you have to have a pretty big building to have them all there. Some of them do, and some larger areas do have that. But basically, the services are available. They might be available via the web or whatever. And there's a set of core services with a group of folks that are there. Services to help you look for a job, help direct you to the right if you need public assistance or you need something like that. Help you direct you in the right place.
Well, that's when they were putting that together. There was once I remember the committee. I forget what committee it was. I think we had a. Did we have the Democrat Congress at that time? I forget. No, I guess 92.
No, in fact, it was the new Republican Congress that actually, when this whole stuff was starting to happen.
And that's why everybody beats up the Republicans for not doing programs like this, but it really happened during during their.
And the Job Training Partnership Act was actually a very bipartisan bill because it was created by none other than Ted Kennedy and Dan Quayle.
Wow. And actually, it was the committee he was on. That's where I went and collected all these programs back in the '90s to do my book.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I would do. I would go to Capitol Hill. They do all the research. I would take
Right.
it, put my name on it, and publish it as something. The catalog of federal domestic assistance.
Mm-hmm.
I made a New York Times bestseller out of that. But
Oh, really?
I really that was my first New York Times bestseller. I found this thing in the GPO. I was like, God. And I just changed the titles, where they had something like the Urban Homesteading Act.
Mm-hmm.
I'd call it Houses for $1.
I got you.
And I really would cut and paste the whole thing, and send it to Penguin Viking. And, it came out, published, and I acted like an idiot on talk shows. And people could have that better at the GPO than buying the old one from me,
Right.
because I had to wait till the government published it,
Right. Right.
to copy it and put it in my book, and that's what frustrates me is that I should not be in business. The government should be doing that.
Well, that's the thing is that I guess the problem with workforce programs and a lot of these programs, a lot of the federal programs that you see is they don't allow marketing as part of the it's not an allowable cost.
Right.
So they kind of get created, but they're never promoted to the extent that if you had a for-profit program where you're going to earn income on it, you'd promote the heck out of it.
Half my money goes to marketing.
Right, exactly.
Now I guess it's tough if you have a program that says, well, we're giving away, what is it, like $2.5 billion or something in training money?
Right.
Something like that. But we need another $1 billion to advertise. We're giving away the $2.
Right, exactly.
And that's a tough sell on the Hill. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And so that's what I see it as sort of, they don't, so people don't hear about it. And then it's the misinformation. And that's why it's great to have someone like you, because I'll interpret things and try to get people's attention. And it may or may not be the true reality everywhere. And particularly hucksters like me, see, we could always find one case. That's what infomercials are.
Right.
It's like your annual report. You find, or this State of the Union. They have somebody in the audience who was, got something by some program, and that's one person.
Right, and we think that's the way it is everywhere.
Exactly,
right.
And it's not. It's all different. But I feel my mission is just get people excited about investigating, and that causes problems, I know, on your end, because you have these calls. Well, Lesko said that,
And I saw this here, and they said that I can get, and I want my,
Yeah, and that's why, to me, on the web now, boy, if I get, see, people can see the bureaucrat in charge of the program. This is what it is. You don't have to do that. And that's why I like this technology. I could never afford to have, on a TV show, and it's too expensive. That's why the technology now is going to bring it all to people so much better, than it was in the past.
Sure.
And that's what's exciting to me. And if I could get my streaming video to work, we do this live, just online, and people could see, an interview with someone like you giving this information. And no matter what I say about it, the reality is the reality.
Right.
And I know from your side, you have a whole lot more constraints you got to work with.
That's the one thing. What's the one ever-present constant with federal funds is that they have a very definite guidelines to how you can spend them and how you can use them.
And that's other thing, to humanize. What I want to do also is humanize our government.
Right.
Because everybody in the government is some lazy, shiftless bureaucrat, with their feet on the desk,
Right.
And they think that, like the Maytag repairman, they're all like that. There's some offices like that,
right.
And I'll find you just as many in business that are like that.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So it's a function of large organizations, and that's why I'm trying to, if we could train people how to deal with large organizations, I think that's the key. Whether, don't try and get Verizon on the phone and get a problem solved. I
hear you. Or your cable company.
Exactly. Cable company is no easy job either. So tell me, what if we frame it maybe like your mother-in-law, you have 12 years in this business. That's wonderful.
It's actually 17.
17, wow. And so 17 years, see? It's a good job. And that's why it's the only job probably
Not
has a pension anymore.
Not at the same job, no, actually not. But,
really?
Because,
you switch from...
Yeah, because I've been, the way that it's set up nationally is that these programs can be housed with local governments. They can be housed with chambers of commerce. generally speaking, they're housed within, for the general public to access in somehow, some way, shape, or form connected with the local county government or the local
Right.
municipal government. And that's, you'll usually see like an office of manpower, an office of workforce. Some people used to call it the unemployment office,
Right.
which, is a misnomer nowadays. But, specifically, that's where you can usually access those programs. They're formed around what the feds call a workforce investment board. And there's about 600 of those nationally.
Wow.
And like I said, they're in different forms. In some places, it's a 501c3. That's like a quasi-governmental 501c3 that works with its local...
But it's all federally funded?
It's
through
all
this?
federally
Wow.
funded. Now, the other thing is, too, is that depending on where it's located and depending upon the nature of the entity, the actual legitimate entity that actually holds those funds, there could be other resources that are available. If it's a 501c3, for example,
I
it may
see.
have more
Right.
resources that are related to getting someone reemployed or getting someone trained than just the federal funds. In fact, if they're smart, that's what they
Right.
would do.
No, I was reading some of these GAO studies on it, and they said that they could go out and raise their own money.
Some of them can, yeah, if they're
or even
501c3.
charge for their services.
If they're a 501c3, absolutely.
Yeah, right. That's amazing to me.
Government
Yeah.
entities have a little bit of a hard time charging
Government,
usually
yeah.
because it's as far as the funds they bring back in, it's difficult to actually capture that and to actually utilize that again. But the 501c3s and some like local county government entities can do that, and they have the infrastructure in place to do it.
So now you're at the state office.
Right.
So are you over all these, dozens or whatever they are in the state of Maryland?
There's 12 workforce investment
Uh-huh.
boards in the state of Maryland. Yes, we are responsible for the administration of their programs.
So even though they may be nonprofits and everything at the local level, they all go through the state,
The federal funds do.
the federal state. Oh, so you distribute, so you
So
got
we
their
distribute
attention.
the federal funds. Yeah, we're kind of like their
Yeah.
we're their grantor basically.
Right, I see.
For the federal fund piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, a lot of them have. Before I came to the state, I was actually the CEO of a nonprofit, and I had the federal funds, but I had probably an equal or greater amount of non-federal funds or local county government funds to do different types of workforce programs that kind of added value to the federal ones.
Like, for instance, what would be?
I'll give you a good example. If someone gets laid off because the company they work for picks up and moves out,
Right.
okay, part of the funds that we have for just the people that lose their job like that enables us to do outplacement for those companies and help to reconnect those folks with other
I
jobs.
see.
Federal funds don't permit the activity of the outplacement and connecting them with other employment, but one of the things that we actually picked up as a local county entity and a 501c3 was a health care. They have COBRA in this state, which is like basically a program for when
Right.
people lose their job to pay for
Right.
their health insurance. The piece we picked up was in addition to that, so it actually, COBRA is not the greatest in the world as far as the amount of
Right.
money that you get.
Right.
This other piece was like a local county program that actually enabled the individual to receive more funds.
So you help pay for their health care while they were looking for a job.
That program did, right?
That
And we
part.
can, and they
Not
connected
from the federal, but from your state.
from the county.
County
From the
level,
county.
yeah.
And we helped them connect to that.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. So that's where people get to me. Well, but all government programs are this, and you can't.
they're different.
Everywhere. So you have a local county government at what used to be called the unemployment office.
Right.
That would actually, if you lose a job, they help you pay for your health care.
Right.
Yeah. So who would ever think?
Right.
Yeah.
And the hard thing about it is that that's not available everywhere.
Right,
That was available in that
exactly.
county at that point in time. But the best thing I think for people to do is ask
Absolutely.
and inquire.
That's why people want to come to me and say, "Well, where's the one program, that's going to solve their problem?" I don't know. And what I see every time I go after something, I find 10 other things I never knew what to ask for.
Never knew they existed. Right.
And that's why we're the question marks too. Because looking for a program. Well, I got to find a grant to do whatever it is, and
Right.
and who, like, you're looking for a grant to train, and who would know there's a financial assistance for healthcare, because that's really what you're hurting with, probably.
Right.
But you didn't know. You just need money. So, and the biggest thing I have, especially all these other hucksters, sort of like me, selling grant kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When 80% of the money that's given out for free, so-called, is not even called grants.
Right.
You're
right.
So I called up you trying to pay my health care bill, asking for a grant. We don't have it. Whatever.
We don't have a grant.
Right. We have a direct payment or something. Yeah.
You have a program you can enroll in, and if you're eligible, then
Right,
you can receive it. Right.
Yeah. So it is. That's why a little bit of information is so dangerous. And as you're saying, just get out there and try it.
Just get out there and look, and and if you go and I've been around to different states and have talked to other entities, other similar local entities and state entities that do workforce development, and I learn something new every time I talk to a new state. It's like, you guys can do what? And like one state has a project has its workforce programs are housed in its in that state's chambers of commerce, because that was a decision that state made.
Right.
And that kind of brings with it a whole other slew of like business programs for someone who wants to start like entrepreneurial type of training, entrepreneurial business, reimbursement for if you so much money to start your own business, to for startup costs and things like that. So
I mean, who would have thought?
Right.
I'm out of work, and now I could go to a government office that will help me finance a business. Right? Mm-hmm. You're saying this was a labor program, and help you live through that. Because because then you could use your unemployment money as to live on,
right,
in addition to the startup cost.
Right.
So it's really everybody's looking for that kind of venture capital, so they don't have to worry about it, and the government's doing it.
Yeah. Another good point to mention too is like veterans, for example.
Yes.
Depending upon who you are and what your background is, veterans, for example, have access to a whole slew of different opportunities. They have there's a special program within the Veterans Administration. It's kind of tied with the U.S. Department of Labor that actually helps fund former vets to start their own business.
Wow. So that's I'm taking notes here. But it's run through one stops?
It's run through one stops.
And that's
and it's run through something, right? And it's something called the there's a national entity called the VWIB. You're familiar with WIBs, the Workforce Investment Boards? The VWIBs are the Veterans Workforce Investment Boards. And there's a national Veterans
Workforce. I see. Yeah. I remember. I give speeches over at the hospital, Walter Reed, and people shot up and getting out, and most people only know about, in the military, know about the veterans,
right,
and the Department of Defense programs, whatever they have, and my thing is that, boy, who should be first in line for all the other programs? Yeah,
right,
except these people who were
absolutely,
and trying to educate them about, just don't even go to vets and Department of Defense. You want to buy a house, you go somewhere else, or training programs that are non-vets they're still eligible for. Everybody thinks they have to find a program with their name on it, and most of them have nobody's name on it.
They don't. And if you like I said, the more you ask about them, the more you'll learn.
Yes.
Like for the vets, that same another counterpart or another component of that program is also they'll provide you with space. Space, and
really?
they'll have they have locations that buildings that they rent out that they own, and they'll help somebody start up their own.
So these incubator kind of stuff.
Incubator, it's like a business incubator. Exactly.
Right. Now that's, what a country.
Yeah.
But it takes effort, I guess, the whole thing about it. What do you think is the biggest? I mean, you've been in business, 17 years. The biggest misconception people have about, unemployment programs, if you put a big general.
Probably that there's too many strings attached. Which there's strings attached, there are. But the biggest piece is going in and doing your research, doing your homework, and finding out what's out there, and then taking advantage of it.
Right.
We were talking a few minutes ago about larger companies and startup companies.
Right.
They do their homework.
Right.
And the ones that take advantage of most of the federal programs have done their homework really well.
Absolutely.
And they take advantage of every single solitary program.
Absolutely. They don't let them go. I mean, there was a GAO study about the programs for employers, not employees. Yeah.
Right.
And it's like 80% of the businesses by big companies, not little companies.
Right.